Hello, everyone. My name is Nihar Ranjan Panda, and I work with Ciena India as the head for business development and solution architecture for Ciena's IP and network automation portfolio. So, SDN and NFV building smarter networks for resilience and efficiency. Okay. Now, SDN and NFV are no more questions of credible technologies today, right? We are well past that stage where we need to evaluate whether SDN and NFV are beneficial or are going to provide any evolutionary mechanism for the operators to, work towards saving their OPEX and CAPEX budgets, or is going to help them in, bringing more resilience and efficiency into the networks. So what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is to highlight some key trends of SDN and NFV for the next couple of years, including 2021. So the first trend I want to highlight is disaggregation. Now, disaggregation has been the stepping stone for most of the operators moving into the SDN and NFV stack. For obvious reasons, of course. One, to get away from vendor lock-in, to realize more savings on their capex and opex budgets, and three, of course, getting scope and more, paving way forward for more innovation into the network, right? In the network services that they want to offer to their customers. Now, disaggregation could be seen in many aspects. One being disaggregating software and hardware. Second being disaggregating the control plane from the forwarding plane. And third being disaggregating a monolithic software application into multiple smaller software blocks, right? What we otherwise call microservices. Now, let me highlight a couple of examples on disaggregation. Now, one being the key trends that we have been observing in the market globally, and soon we would see some of this happening in India as well, which is disaggregation in mobility. Now, when I say disaggregation mobility, one of the key things that we need to understand is that with the astounding and exponential growth that has been happening in terms of number of subscribers, in terms of the data traffic, and particularly due to the pandemic situation for the last year, certainly the existing traditional mode of deploying cell sites probably is not going to work, right? Particularly looking at the scale. Now, there have been already trials, there have been established standards as well, how to enhance or how to optimize the situation. One way is to disaggregate the cell site into multiple components. So typically when we see a cell site, it's just nothing but a E node B or a cell site switch, would have multiple components, including the radio head, including the distribution unit, which handles a PHY layers, and then we have the control unit, what DU and CU combined, what we call BBU. Now, as we move closer and we require more and more cell sites to be deployed in order to handle the scale, we certainly don't want to take every component into the closer to the user. It could be possible that we could have the DU and CU bring deeper into the network, and radio heads or the cell sites sharing those DUs and CUs. Now, the DUs and CUs could further be virtualized, and of course, these terminologies have been used for couple of years right now as vRAN and CRAN and so on. So, what we are disaggregating here, we are disaggregating the critical functions of a cell site switch, the distribution functions, the control functions, and placing them closer or deeper into the network, whereas taking the radio sites or the radio heads closer to the user, right? Now, this differs as to how it really depends on the situation as to what kind of split that we want to work out, how farther into the network or how farther towards the user we need to go. These are all questions to be answered while we are on the whiteboarding, for a particular scenario. The other aspect of disaggregation is in the transport. When I say transport, is particularly indicating towards packet transport. Now, one of the major challenges in the packet transport has been handling the flow of traffic in the network. How do we have better control on the traffic behavior in the network, right? And how do we optimize the resources that we have in the transport network. Now, traditionally, it has been the job of the NEs that are in the network equipments, typically the routers. Now, the routers that are responsible to, intelligently maneuver the traffic flow by identifying the best path and so on, can we now disaggregate that intelligence bit of it towards a centralized software piece, right? Which could be like a command and control approach, which could sit centrally somewhere, which has the entire visibility of the network, can take calls as to where traffic has to originate and how the traffic has to be maneuvered across the network via the most efficient path. Now, this is something what we call path computation engine, or we might want to call it SDN controller. The third would be, disaggregating the router further into two parts primarily. One, the hardware, which we would, be responsible for the data plane, and then taking out the OS as the control plane. Now, this is what is happening already. Now, how much it would result into the reality of deployments is something that we need to see, particularly the third one, where we have very high, speed and feed that is required, and very efficient, operating systems or softwares that are required to handle those data planes. Lastly, on the enterprise side, we have seen disaggregation happening at the edge or at the wide area network side, right, where the different network functions that typical enterprises have now can be hosted onto a common x86 or a COTS device, right? And this further has resulted into something what we call software-defined wide area networking. Now, as we see, these are some of the key trends in disaggregation that are already happening, and we would very soon see this happening. And a bit of it already happened in India as well. And as we move further into 2021 and into the 5G era, we would see this probably is going to be the mainstream. The second trend is being cloud native. Now, cloud native simply means the network functions, in our context particularly, the network functions that we are talking about are or can seamlessly be installed or hosted in a cloud environment and can be managed seamlessly as well. Typically, when network functions have been virtualized, they were not designed to be cloud native, and this required an fundamental architectural shift, how this network functions to be designed. But as we are moving into 2021 and beyond, we are seeing this happening already, and this is the right way to go. So typical monolithic architecture-based virtual network functions are now being disaggregated into multiple smaller software blocks or multiple smaller functional blocks, what we call microservices, which then allows us the flexibility and the enhancements that are required to do in certain functional areas very efficiently. And there comes Kubernetes and the services mesh architecture and so on. Now, this is going to be one of the major themes going forward into 2021 and beyond. The third key trend being closed loop network automation, right? Now, SDN and NFV definitely addresses some of the key network challenges that we have been having for so long. But what is the ultimate moksha, that providers are looking at? Providers are looking at having this programmable infrastructure, what is enabled by SDN and NFV, being assisted by analytics and assurance tools that can help them closing the loop of automations. Now, what are the typical areas or use cases that can be addressed by closed loop network automation? Typically, traffic engineering, right? Self-healing, network optimization, and network slicing, right? Network slicing being one of the most talked about use cases in 5G. Now, programmable infrastructure is something that allows us to provide very instrumented data that can be fed into data analytics or machine learning algorithms, which can further provide us insights into what's happening in the network. And using that insight, we can further take control of the network predictively, or at the worst case, reactively as well, using right software control and automation tools. In summary, SDN and NFV are here to stay. The manifestations, of course, will keep evolving based on use cases with respect to certain geography, with respect to the customer bases and so on. But the end goal will remain same. That is, how do we better manage our networks at scale with precision and efficiency while keeping our CapEx, OpEx budgets under control? With that, thank you for hearing me out.